Emily, could you talk about two services in China, Weibo and WeChat, as just examples of how these tensions are playing out? Weibo is really the subject of an intense crackdown, but WeChat is something in terms of the freedom of assembly that is a game changer.
Definitely, sure. So quickly, I agree with everything that Auntie just said, and I think part of the problem here is that we, and the Western media, I probably take some of the blame for this here. We set up this kind of false question, which is, will the internet create a change of government in China? Like, I don't know why we were asking that question, because the internet on its own doesn't topple governments, right? So people say to me, well, when will the internet transform China? How come the internet hasn't transformed China? And the internet has already transformed China. Yes, everything Auntie is saying is true. The government is using it to its own advantage. It has its limits, but that doesn't mean it hasn't had a transformative effect in other ways. And that brings me to your question. One of the most, people always ask about the Western companies in China, Google, Facebook, Twitter, why none of them have really succeeded that well. And well, Facebook and Twitter are blocked. One of China's probably most brilliant strategies is not just blocking these sites, but creating really vibrant domestic alternatives. So that's actually, and I went to China recently, and I was amazed at, it really felt like every single person in China was using WeChat, and if you weren't using WeChat, you were some sort of social pariah, which is interesting because here in the US, the average person is not aware of WeChat at all. So it's like these two totally different information universes. We have, the US kind of on Facebook and Twitter, and then you have China on WeChat, which is much more localized, has really cool features, and everybody you know is on it. So that's a really effective way to keep people sort of on the local networks. But the difference between Weibo and WeChat and Twitter and Facebook is that the Chinese versions are censored. They're heavily censored, and they're monitored and surveilled. But people still make the choice to use them because they're more convenient, they're more adapted to the Chinese environment, and they have cool features before we do in the US. So you might be able to talk more specifically about them. But.
Yeah, with WeChat, it's kind of amazing. People willingly give their names, their friends, their dating partners. It's just like the new normal, right?
Yeah, this is the amazing thing. When we were talking about this morning about WeChat, is that that was what struck me in China, is that I would talk to people who were former dissidents or were dissident-minded, or Americans media critics living in China, and they were just using WeChat. And basically, it's very simple. You give them your cell phone number, you give them all your contacts, you tell WeChat where you're going all the time. They were doing this voluntarily, which I think is just an interesting aspect of this kind of new normal psychology.
Yeah, I think I think the China new normal will become the new normal of the United States and globally, because we already know there is surveillance. Everyone knows every sentence we're writing and talking will be surveilled and monitored by the government. We already know 1,000 years ago, right? But the problem, the United States, your people has an illusion. You thought your privacy was protected. The government will never surveil and monitor everything you said. But Snowden just tell you no. NSA did exactly almost same thing as the government, maybe more clever thing. So actually, this is a universal question about the privacy. It's not only China, just like me, I'm a little bit sometimes criticize the government, but I use the WeChat. But sometimes I raise the question, when the WikiLeaks happened, I raised the question to my friend, WikiLeaks, then Snowden. So almost everything you can't keep secret eventually will put in the public. So if you cannot put it in secret, how can you behave? This is a psychological questions, right? So China is the mind test lab. Basically, you say, when you enter China, there is no secret at all to the government. How can you behave? Can you still fight for the freedom of speech without all the surveillance, without everything you said was disclosed by the government and in the public, everything said will put you in danger? But people in China are still fighting for the freedom. So it's not really, because we think if this is new normal, if this is the fact, we cannot just avoid that. We just confront that. So when this come to the new things question to the United States also, if eventually NSA or the government is surveilling everything, or eventually everything you said will be in public. Why not? We still fight for the freedom. Freedom is worth in fight, even everything is in public.
Yeah, I guess in China you just don't really have much of a fight for privacy.
Yeah,
That's sort of a losing battle.
Yeah, privacy is actually not really even a question, because privacy is broken hardly, and
Yeah.
in
So
China,
that's the difference. It's like, yeah.
yeah.